Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brandon Mosley, staff with the Planning and Development Department. This is the Bicycle Advisory Committee Infrastructure Subcommittee meeting. Today is August 24th, 2022. The mission and vision. The mission of the BAC is to advise and make recommendations to the commission and the directors on issues related to bicycling in the city, including, but not limited to, amendments to the bike plan, bicycle safety and education, implementation of the bike plan, development of strategies for funding projects related to bicycling, and promoting public participation in bicycling. The BAC vision is by 2027, the city of Houston will be a safer, more accessible, gold level, bike-friendly city. At this time, I do a roll call. Committee members. We'll start with Chair Alejandro Perez.
Present.
BAC Chair Tom Thompson.
Present.
Tracy Alexander. Leah Chambers. Adam J. Williams. Carl Salazar. Christine Anthony Miller. Beth Martin. Lisa Grip. Trevor Reitman.
Present.
Jessica Wiggins. Johanna Mahmood. Nick Hellier. Judith Villarreal. Amar Mohite. Mike Van Dusen.
Here.
Anna Ramirez Herta. Nikki Knight. Robin Holzer. Vion McReynolds. All right, ex officio members, David Fields. Evan Lavacek. Juvenile Robles. Any other BAC committee members came in during the roll call? All right, seeing none, we'll move forward. Today's meeting can be found, agenda and slides can be found on the Houston Bikeways website. And you also can join by phone by dialing 936-755-1521 using the ID 387-102-013 #. All right, Microsoft Team instructions. Please remember to stay on mute unless identified by the chair to speak. If you're connected through the phone, please stay muted, and you can unmute by pressing *6. Before you use our agenda, and we'll start with the director's report.
Thank you. Just two items, one update, and then maybe an introduction. We are working on the city's bicycle-friendly communities application. As you all know, we already have bronze level status. You see that a few years back. This time around, we are submitting. We are aiming for silver level status. We've been doing so much good work with all the different partners. As context, it is an 83-page application. So it is taking significant staff time. We've reached out to, we phoned a friend many times, including our partners at different city departments, regional partners, Bike Houston. Once it is submitted and we hear anything, we'll certainly let you all know. But this is to keep us on task to achieve gold level bicycle friendly status by 2027. Any questions about that one?
Well, other than I'm trying to get the University of Houston downtown to apply as well. Well, even though I've already graduated, I'm still like trying to promote the bicycle for like UHD, and you know the hard part is like getting students engaged. So it's hard turnover, but I have a meeting with like people in staffs already, so we seem open to it. So pretty helpful.
And if there's anything city staff can do, you know, it's coming and presenting about all the stuff that's doing, we're happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the second thing is something I teed up either 1 or 2 months ago. We were approached by the Greater Houston Off-Road Biking Association, who started to say, hey, why don't we start doing stuff together? And they have been kind of working on their off-road stuff for a while. So we met with them as staff. It was a very, very positive relationship. We feel like everybody who's involved in biking is part of this big umbrella organization. We've invited them to come introduce themselves today. What's that?
Ben Drews.
Is Ben on?
Yes,
Okay.
Ben's on.
Hey, Ben, if you're here, you want to say hi?
Hey, how's it going? How you doing,
Great.
David? Glad to be here.
You want to tell us about the organization?
Yeah, so give you a little backdrop. Gorba has been around for nearly 20 years, and when we say Greater Houston, we have trails as far south as nearly Galveston with Jack Brooks Park, all the way up to Huntsville State Park and Sam Houston National Park as well. Currently, Gorba's in the process of doing a landmark agreement involving the precincts and flood control, where we are going to basically legitimize 3 separate trail systems on the west side of Houston. The Anthills, which most people probably know is probably a 30 or 40-year-old Houston Institute, will for the first time be legitimate ever, which is taking a lot of work on our part, the city and the precincts and the flood control and the stakeholders that are there, as well as Cypress Creek Mountain Bike Park, which is up in Tomball, and Cypress Wood Park, which is up there as well. So pretty fun stuff for us, but we're looking at how do we grow the off-road biking portion, and how can we help make Houston a destination city for mountain bikes in the future. We want to do something similar to Bentonville. It won't look like Bentonville, but we have a unique ecosystem here in Houston that I think we could benefit, and it'd be a great benefit to the communities we have here, as well as bringing more people to Houston for really good reasons outside of just oil and gas and jobs. I hope that was enough, David, or maybe too much.
That was perfect. Thanks, Ben. It was really just an introduction so we can all start getting to know each other, and as we see opportunities, be working together on projects.
Ben, thanks for joining in. I followed Gorba for a while already on Facebook, and before y'all came together and started organizing to advocate, and I love the passion you guys have down there, and I'm really happy to see y'all start organizing and pushing a little bit further and bringing mountain biking down to Houston to the level it's been. I'm really happy you reached out and willing to participate and collaborate with the city of Houston, how we can kind of extend the network beyond the Houston Bike Plan, because I believe the Houston Bike Plan is really part of mountain bike trails, right? So connecting to those resources would be amazing, and another reason for people to get on their bikes and ride down there.
Agree completely. Again, thanks for the invite, and glad the connection was made. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
That's the end of my report.
Thank you so much. We'll move on with the chair's report.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome again to another episode of the infrastructure meeting today. Other than the recent news that's been put out by the city, I'm happy to see things coming around down the pipeline that I've been looking for since the beginning. Like the mini sweeper, finally getting something down where people around the city are seeing that the city of Houston is serious about the Houston Bike Plan Network. The 10% budget proposal as well. So it's another proof, or another item that shows the dedication that the city has, and for people to see that this is not just painting bike lanes anymore. This is something that's more than that, and hopefully more people will participate and engage now, considering that the city's being more serious about this, and for also not only the city but also the precincts, Harris County. We have leaders like Rodney Ellis and Adrian Gonzalez starting to jump in and tap into what the city is doing and collaborating with the city. So this is really good to see, and that's what I'll just bring to the report is the city and Harris County local government basically starting to look at cycling as something that legitimately worth investing in.
Thank you. Before we move on to the public comment, has any new committee members joined the meeting?
Nikki Knight.
Nikki Knight, welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Right. Hearing no more, we'll move on to public comments. Please send in written comments to the BAC, email there on the screen by 5 p.m. the day before the BAC meetings. Comments will be read aloud by staff during the meeting. If you want to comment by phone, you can join by dialing 936-755-1521, ID 919-940-547, plus *6 to unmute when called upon by the chair. Or you can leave a comment in Microsoft Teams, and you can say what you'd like to comment. Sharon, are you on?
Yes, I am. You do have several comments in the queue. Some of them you already know. Ben Drews has already made his comment. Good afternoon, everyone. Ricky Cardenas is here. Then, of course, we did hear from Nikki Knight. She stated she's present. And then I have one comment from Ed Pettit that says he would like to make a public comment if possible.
Ed?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Ed Pettit. I just wanted to make I have a public comment that we had a successful Third Ward on Tap bicycle event in May, and I will be sharing our link tree through the meeting chat for our full evaluation report of the event. We had over 200 people engaged along the Columbia Tap Trail and coordinated rides with Bike Houston and Houston B-Cycle and our local partners. And out of that, we've formed a Friends of Columbia Tap group to advocate for better integration of the trail with the community and other bike lanes. As part of that, I'd like to know whether we have a home on the Bicycle Advisory Committee website for our completed projects list and what % planning and such is done. I didn't see it in the slides for today. For example, the Metro Boost 54 bike lane along McGowan, where do we find the latest update on where that is in the planning and implementation project? There used to be like a project list with % completion.
Here, this the sheets.
I have nothing. We'll work on getting that information to you.
We update that quarterly, Ed.
Yeah.
We updated it for the full meeting of the whole, I think that was last month.
Last month, yes, we presented.
That went out in the notes. I don't know if we updated the website with the most recent. We're actually
Okay.
tweaking it right now because we're going to use it for the bicycle friendly communities application. We need the most recent. So once we have that, we'll also upload it.
Okay, thank you.
No other comments in the chat. Oh, but I do just see a hand that was raised by Tom.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Hey, Ed, great to see you at the meeting here. I ride the Columbia Tap frequently. Something I raised a year or so ago, as many people are aware, there's a significant new development going on Dixie Road between the south end of the Columbia Tap and Alameda. And Dixie shows up on some of our old bikeway maps as an on-street, shared bikeway. Dixie's kind of narrow, and I think I think it's called Levitt Life Sciences or something like that. It's just phase 1 that's being built now. It's going to be a pretty big complex. I think it'll have, I don't know where the main entrance is going to be. It may be on Holcomb, but it's on Dixie too. My concern is that Dixie's going to get pretty busy, and it is a nice connection between the Columbia Tap and Herman Park. It provides access for those neighborhoods to the east of Alameda and the east of 288 to get to Herman Park and to the Braze Trail and points west. So I had raised the question maybe a year ago to Public Works as to where Dixie fit on the plan. Is there any plans to expand it? The answer was no. I don't think it's on the major thoroughfares plan or whatever that's called, but I just wanted to raise awareness on that. And Ed, if your group might want to weigh in on that and the need to make provisions at some point along Dixie. It looks like there's plenty of right of way. There are ditches, there's utility lines and so forth. I don't know what's underground, but just wanted to raise to this group the need to be aware of what's going on Dixie now, and we need to preserve and better yet improve access for bicyclists along Dixie between the Columbia Tap and Alameda Road.
Yeah, so to respond to that, Joe, thank you very much. That it actually was one of our stops during the Third Ward on Tap event. And we've reached out to the developers there. On their website, Heinz calls it Levitt Green, but I think it might go by a couple different names. And we definitely want to make sure that the trail connects with that mixed-use development and or can go along Dixie for access to the medical center, because right now it's an abrupt dead end for the Columbia Tap. So that's going to be a major point of advocacy for the Friends of Columbia Tap group.
So you have reached out to Heinz on that?
Yeah, one of the members of our group, David Rincon, did his entire Master's of Architecture thesis on the Columbia Tap and reached out to the architects on that project. So I will loop you into that conversation.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Joe Catrufo has his hand up.
Hey, on that same topic, one of our board members at Bike Houston works at Heinz, and I was invited in a few months back to meet with those same architects and gave them some of the same input that I'm sure that Ed and his group did, which was, they were actually actively seeking our input to see what would be the best way to accommodate people coming from Columbia Tap. There was no specificity at that time about, what changes would be coming to Dixie Drive, but yeah, I'd be happy to be part of that conversation as well, Ed and Tom.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Tom and Joe. Yeah, I'll start an email thread for us.
Thanks.
There were no written comments sent in to the BAC to read for public comment. Any here in person?
I'll bring something up.
Yes.
Had a conversation. Oh, I see Ricky on. I'll let Ricky
Okay.
go on. I was speaking with Ricky like a few days ago. Ricky?
Okay, yeah, you got me, guys? You there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to speak. Yeah, I just wanted to, along the same lines of, kind of just what was mentioned, point out Commerce Street as a roadway that can, that needs actually some improvement as far as, not only improvement to the road, but maybe adding a bike lane and connecting an existing bike lane to another existing bike lane. At the east end of Commerce Street is the Harrisburg Hike and Bike Trail. And that's at the west end. And then at the east end of Commerce Street would be the Austin Street bike lane. I just wanted to bring some attention to that and hope to kind of build some momentum to get this street maybe to the top of someone's list for funding to be improved and, have protected bike lanes added.
Good deal. Yeah, that's a good idea. I know there's a certain surge of interest in that, and that's a really good idea. I think it's a really great idea actually, because it's connecting two neighborhoods and, Commerce is an old railroad. I've been passing through there lately and like just to see what it's like, and there's plenty of space to move around and make something happen for sure. But yeah, I think that's a great idea to bring up and see where we're at with that. But I think I remember when we spoke, Ricky, about the website needing a little refreshing because they were concerned about like looking at the priorities of how the infrastructure is looked at. And I know we did cover that in like past BAC meetings, but there's like one of those slides that we have from those meetings to put on the website, so that way people can see the priorities of why these bike lanes are being chosen, because I feel there's a lot of comments about like why these bike lanes are not coming in, or why is this other bike lane happening and why this one isn't. So it'd be good to like see if we can post that on the website, so that way people can see that and why we're choosing the lanes that we're choosing. Yeah.
All right.
I had two things, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to do it now, public comment or open forum. That's similar to what's been discussed, so I'm happy to.
Public comment is for just the general stuff.
Okay.
The open forum is more specifically for things that got covered that needed to get refreshed.
Got it. So two things, and Joe, I don't know if you were gonna mention this, one, bike counters or pedestrian counters for 11th Street. The community we've been discussing, and I offered to, I'm on the fence about this, but the community feels like would be a good thing to have for 11th Street, because of course, we always have the debate with the larger community about the usage of bike lanes. So we're thinking it may be better to have them in place sooner rather than later. Who has the bike count, the pedestrian counters? I don't know. Tom?
What were you asking? But this is really just comments, not really a Q&A session.
Oh,
So just make your comments and we'll do what we can with what you say.
Okay, then second is, at the TERS 26 meeting about Montrose, protected bike lanes, a resident there very kindly mentioned that the protected bike lane along Waugh, several of the safety posts have been knocked down and nobody was quite sure how to get those replaced. So I offered to, since the meeting was today, to sort of see what I could find out and relay that back to them.
Yeah, just like to the TERS. It's, I think there's 27, 26 for a while.
Montrose TERS,
Yeah.
is it 27?
I think
Yeah.
that's correct, but
Didn't know what, how to,
is it responsible for maintenance for a certain time after it's open?
oh, so it's setting with them, okay. All right, okay. All right, thank you.
You know?
Right.
You have a couple of comments in the chat. Just
okay.
want to make you aware.
Yes.
Can you hear me? A comment from Ed Pettit to Tom, make sure that you please send him your email contact. I just want to make sure that we bring that to your attention, Tom. And then Ed, Nikki is asking for you to please loop her into this conversation as well. This information is also in the chat. Please review.
Thank you. So now we'll do strategic bikeways improvements. Right. David?
So as anybody who's at the last BAC of the whole was part of, the agreement of the BAC was to take 10% of the annual bikeway funds and put it towards very focused strategic improvements. These would not be big ticket items. They're not going to build, miles and miles of stuff, but they're for spot improvements that improve safety, or it could bring a facility from low comfort to high comfort with some focused investment. So we are pleased to bring you two proposals. The first two, you're probably not going to be able to read that, so I made a couple more slides right after.
Okay.
We'll take them one at a time. And these come from a lot of community feedback, including feedback directly from Bike Houston as well as general public. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the first was at San Jacinto got cut off in my text box, my apologies. But San Jacinto at White Oak Bayou Trail, there's a kind of small median pedestrian refuge in the middle there. And the proposal is to add these K71s to make it much more noticeable and a place. We got some applause. It's a pretty low cost, but it's a very site specific improvement that we're presenting to the BAC. And would it be easier if I do both and then we can talk about both, or do you all want to do one and then the other? Mr. Chair.
For sure. I see a hand up already. Maybe you can do one at a time.
Okay, so we'll stop at this one right now.
What's an E71?
I'm sorry, it's like, I meant to say K71. It's those yellow, very kind of 2 foot tall yellow bollards you'll see on the screen on the right. Those are examples that are in on Deerwood. And they kind of define the island. They're not going to stop something at high speed, but they're really not meant to. They're meant to alert everybody of what is there.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Joe.
Everybody's joking.
Any other
I mean,
questions about?
Thanks, David.
I'll comment on this. As I mentioned earlier about the UHD Bike Club, this is one of our main passageways getting around downtown. It's directly connected to UHD, so I'm very much a fan of this because crossing through there can be a little hairy, and I do ride with a group of maybe 10 or so. I know that UHD Bike Club is starting pretty small right now with riders, but I think weather's going to calm down a bit. And one thing I would comment on, if we can make that refuge a little bit wider for more people to fit in, so that way, like big groups, I guess, like like I mentioned with the used bike, I could probably squeeze all in there or something, you know, because other than like making cars stop at that intersection, so all of us can get through at the same time. Yeah, but otherwise, I'm totally for this plan.
Anybody else in the chat on this one?
Anyone else in the chat, Sharon?
Sorry, my computer got jammed there. Can you hear me? No, there's no
Yes.
one in the chat. You're fine to move on.
Okay.
Wait a minute, here it is. Ricky Cardenas is saying, are those bollards filled with cement or are they hollow? I apologize.
I don't know off the top of my head. I will have to confirm that. I don't remember what we did at Deerwood.
And
Or
then
with
Melissa
extra.
Biller. Melissa Biller is asking, what is the project cost?
We haven't costed it out. We know from the Cedarwood ones, these are relatively low cost and we can do them in-house. Oh, and yeah, go ahead.
I apologize. They're popping up as we speak. Lauren Grove is asking K71s are, oh, she's stating K71s are hollow for the record. If that helps. And then, looks like, is that Ed? Yeah, I think that's Pettit. He just included a report on the TAP event. So that's just in the queue, so everybody will know. Thank you, Ed.
One thing I've noticed about these, like, other than being a great idea, but the platforms is very, what is it, 6 inches?
The actual meeting.
Yeah.
They all kind of are designed differently in terms of the site.
Because, like, if the K71s are hollow, and people like, I think I'm seeing a concern where, you want, cars to kind of like, be stopped if they were to run over this, but, I remember, I'll never forget this, but when I was in Mexico, like, the curves were like maybe like 8 to 10 inches, so they just raised the curve up way higher, so that way, cars would like practically stop there and make up for like a bollard almost. So is that an option or something?
I mean,
like that?
it is, it won't stop a car that's going fast. It has to be much, much higher
Right.
to get them to stop. And I don't want to give the false expectation.
Mhm.
This is mostly a notification. tool,
Right.
So people see the space.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, well, that's in itself is already big.
Yeah. Much better than what you see out there
Definitely,
today.
yes.
And with that, we'll go to the next one.
Sure, let's go.
Okay. And now we're talking about Main Street from Holmen to Dallas. This is kind of south of the pedestrian plaza. It's already one vehicle lane in each direction with the light rail in the middle of the street. So you can't pass it. There's no way to go around. So with some signage and some striping, we can basically make this a shared bikeway according and notify people that this is where we expect bikes to be, and you're not going to be able to go around them if you're driving. You're going to be sharing the space with them. And it's a pretty defined segment because we have the plaza on the north end. And then north of that, we have, at least as of right now, the more space seating areas. So striping and signage to designate the space as shared bikeway.
For sure. I think any improvement, I know we have people that are fans of Sharrows and stuff, so I think that's something that can really help, people who like to take the lane and not ride in bike lanes. It's kind of, it acknowledges them in this respect, so, I'm with it.
And because it is one lane in each direction, with the light rail in the middle, taking the lane is effectively just being in the space.
Right.
And the Sharrow is not, we're trying to move away from Sharrows in multi-lane spaces where, you're just open. If you are in the space, there's no way for a vehicle to get around you. It's just not wide enough.
So this is highlighting that this can be not only, not that it's a Sharrow, but also can take a full lane basically.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. We need more of those signs for sure.
Ron Miller wants to know, would that include a change in posted speed limit as well?
It was not anticipated. Changing a speed limit requires a study for the entire length of whatever you're doing. We are working in the parallel way to change the prima facie speed limit. But I'll kind of give the VAC a heads up that the idea of the strategic money is to be able to do something quick without months and months, years and years of stuff. If the direction is you want us to start doing all that stuff, we're not gonna be able to do any of these quickly. So we're gonna have to pick one approach or the other, and it feels like in here, getting the notification of a signed route, it kind of gets us most of what we need.
Emmanuel Nunez would like to know, can it be made only for bikes, no through traffic?
There have been different proposals about it at different times. We've started talking to the business owners in the area, the tourism management districts. It's a much longer conversation. Some seem like they're open to it, some are not around to it yet. What I would say is let's keep having those conversations and let's get this up and running, and so they can see the bikes are really out there and how many people are using that space. And we think that's going to help the conversation long term.
Thank you. Melissa Builder would like to know, how does the Main Street project overlap with the high injury network?
That's a good question. I did not take a peek at the high injury network here. I can't answer it off the top of my head. If anybody wants to pull it up, it is on the city's website, the bike and the Vision Zero website.
Thank you, David. Those are all the questions for now.
I just had a quick, I heard that, Rice Village is gonna do the same thing by posting signs. So is that a larger effort by the city, or maybe it's West U, because I don't know if Rice Village is part of it. Anyway, they're posting signs, the same thing, they use the full lane, because they have those narrow streets there, so it's really nice.
Do you have a contact name that I can speak to?
I'll look.
If you find it, just send it to me. I'd love to speak to it.
So I see that it's like really close to the Austin Street bike lane. Would it be fair to like have a poll if like cyclists would be interested in like, an alternative to this? To see if this is what really cyclists want? I mean, because like in my opinion, like Austin feels pretty safe. It's low traffic and you can get through. The bike lane feels wide enough. Of course, in the future, I do believe if it could be like one way, it'd be great, and then maybe Main Street could be kind of, well, we can't do that, it's like a one way all the way.
And so they're pretty far to make them a couplet.
Right. So, yeah,
And
exactly.
in our mind, we want them to do both.
Right.
The full Austin Street facility and then this additional shared one.
Mhm. Yeah, I just wonder like if like, give the residents or constituents, just a chance to get a feeler, see how they feel about it.
Sure. If you give me a little more direction, I'm happy to try to figure something out. I'm not exactly sure what's being asked by that.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that
Okay.
later. I can form that better.
Great.
Okay, Trevor Reichman has his hand raised, and then there are several comments in the chat, but we'll go with the raised hand first. Trevor?
Oh, yeah. Hey, with Main Street, what is the current protocol for cyclists where there's overlap seating from the bars? Because I think that's where some of the confusion is right now. Most cyclists just go onto the sidewalk and around those the overlap seating.
The more space where
Yeah.
the cities. So you can bike there because it's filled in space. It's no longer an active street. You can walk your bike on the sidewalk in downtown, or you can detour.
And will that protocol be included in the signage for what cyclists should do in those parts?
About where to detour to?
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be part of this. If people have heard that people don't know where to detour to, we can certainly look at a sign package. We hadn't heard that from anybody. In fact, the few people who did comment on the bicycling that they biked today before we put in the more space, they said most people told us they were happy to see the space not being used by cars, so they were willing to detour when they weren't biking.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Trevor. We're moving to the comments in the chat from Joe Catrufo. Given that Main Street's right-of-way is just 11 feet wide, there's no way a driver can pass a bicyclist safely, given at least 3 feet space. So these markings and signs reinforce to drivers that you shouldn't expect to pass. Then we have a comment from Melissa Buehler. Can the city provide general cost estimates for both projects? Just want to know if these projects are most of our money or how much would be left over for the fiscal year for other projects that pop up.
So we can start bringing those to future meetings. This was the first time out of the gate on our strategic bikeways plan. We know these are all low cost things. I don't have a specific number, but we'll start getting that together. We are hesitant to use a whole lot of staff time until we get the nod from you all that you want these kinds of projects. That's why the first time just kind of feel it out.
Thank you. And then Melissa continues to say she would like to see before general cost estimates before a vote, please. I'll move on to the next comment, which is from Ed. I've added these links to our link tree and will add David Rycon's thesis, Cycles of the Columbia Tap, once I get permission. And that concludes the comments in the chat.
General support on hearing?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. General support for sure.
All right. Moving forward with the agenda, we have West Chase District Infrastructure, Brian Dotson.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. All right. If you go to the next slide, please. Yeah. What we want to do today, Dan Phelps and I looked at some infrastructure that was installed by West Chase District over the last 2-3 years. It's good in the sense it's a pretty diverse set. They did some protected two-way bike lanes, neighborhood shared street, some on-street bike lanes and some side paths. So pretty good mix of infrastructure. They have also done quite a bit of MUP in the area. We're not gonna touch on that. And the idea here was for us to just see how it all came out and provide feedback on what we saw, see if we can learn from these projects. So that's the scope. If you can go to the next slide, please. We have put together a document that's about 10 pages that has been reviewed with suddenly I'm having a brain cramp here, with Irma Sanchez with the West Chase District. But this is just a one-page summary of that. One thing that worked out real nicely, they put in a two-way bike lane on Deerwood, and it's really good because it connects a side path along Beltway 8 access road to neighborhood shared street. Working real good, stays pretty clean based on they do go in and sweep it, and it also drains well from a water standpoint. So a good example of where that works very nicely. The second item, we ended up getting they're not quite Bob Lanier bike lanes, but they're still just some paint and a little bit of distance down on Walnut Bend. And so we identified some opportunities of maybe a little improvement on that in the future. Another thing that's I consider very serious is that we ended up with bike lanes in the door zone next to parking. My own opinion is that's really dangerous because a new rider hearing some noise coming up behind them naturally moves to the right. All it's going to take is one person opening the door, and you can have a very serious accident, a very serious crash. Disappointed to see that happening again. We've done it in other places in town. That was a disappointment. Another feedback. We ran a side path was made from essentially Westheimer all the way to Briar Forest along the west side of a street called City West. And the problem with that's nice and wide and comfortable. Problem with it though is that there are businesses on the east side of City West, and there's no way to get to them. So it really isn't a transportation. Its transportation utility is very limited because there's no way to basically get across the street. So you end up riding in the street. Dan actually works over there to the east, and so he's not using the side path. He gets on the street. Another issue that this is an example of it is the City of Houston ordinance regarding riding on a sidewalk. They ended up designating bike route on the north end on Briar Forest along the existing sidewalk. The problem is that that's in violation of the city ordinance. And that's this ordinance is kind of silly. We're looking to see if that shouldn't be changed. There are several other places in town where I'm concerned that if the lawyers get a hold of it, they'll say, well, we can't legally make this a bike route, and basically destroy a good connection on paper. Of course, reality is separate from paper ordinances, of course, but I can see this preventing bike routes being established, based on, I'll say, silliness. So I know Keith is, Keith, are you there?
Yeah, hi, hey, Brian.
Kevin, I'm sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, sorry. You can call me Joe too.
Yeah, just don't call you late for dinner.
Brian surfaced this a few weeks ago, and we've been looking at how we could put this forward. We think the fix is pretty simple, just strike it from the city ordinance. So as David knows, we have a meeting with him, or you, and Sally Alcorn, Councilmember Sally Alcorn. She is a champion for sidewalk issues and commutes by bike and bus quite often. The other reason I think it's an issue, we're among friends here. Jay, I'm sure, has ridden on many bicycles for safety. The rate at which the city is implementing bike lanes and paths is phenomenal. But as we know, painfully know, especially from 11th Street, there's pushback from some local people. And it is a matter of time, we think, before they figure this out and use it as a way to maybe be petty or just make things difficult. There are already people out there who don't want us riding on sidewalks. And given how inhospitable Houston can be for bicyclists, I bike downtown, and I know you're not supposed to do it downtown, but I biked on 2/3 of the sidewalks here just because it doesn't feel safe being in those streets. So because the city is looking at changes to the sidewalk ordinance, we may be too late, but we were hoping that it could sort of get included in that bucket of changes. That's it. That's it, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah. So and tied in with this is that getting some input from local cyclists when establishing these bike routes can be useful. As an example on this one, actually a more sensible bike route that then goes onto the map would avoid that sidewalk anyway. All right, there's a really an easier neighborhood shared street routing. So I will say that I think it's a combination of those of us who use bike routes need to be aware of when these things are happening and, make our voices heard. And then the management districts in the city, have your antennas up when you're setting up a bike route, to get some input from users on it. It's both of us. So hopefully we can improve on that in the future. Sorry. And then another thing that surfaced in our discussion with Irma is that because of all of the different jurisdictions and funding sources and the overlay, the plat of how things are done, you can end up with things you weren't originally expecting. And so it's important to keep that in mind. Sometimes there are funding sources that may be more or less useful to get the kind of infrastructure that you really want to have. So I'll let me wrap up and I'll answer any questions. Basically, we went over this with Irma Sanchez, the West Chase District, and we have a full full documentation of this. I think that there's some value in users doing a post appraisal of things that are installed. It is difficult to communicate all this stuff. We've got the engineering firms, we've got TERS's management districts, the city, TxDOT. We've got a lot of different people, and I'd like to see someone host a place that we can store post appraisals so that everyone has access to them. I've done a couple before, and I've reviewed them in this meeting, and I think that it would be a practice that would be useful for designers and funders as we go forward. So I'll shut up now and answer any questions.
Okay.
I have one. What luck have you had with your county commissioner? Because I think that's precinct 4, isn't it?
That is currently precinct 4. And as far as I know, they were not, I'm pretty sure they did not have any involvement in this project. Their name never, I mean, it was precinct 3 back when they built it. But county didn't, I don't remember hearing anything about the county in this project. They're involved, of course, in others.
Yeah, and I just mentioned that because I knew that county commissioners do have a little bit more power to make some things happen. So if they were to be involved, maybe it's something that could be an opportunity.
Yes, and that's a good example of, I'll say this, this mishmash of, of who's involved. Like I said, in this one, they weren't involved. And I would say another example would be Newlands Road, that was rebuilt, and the county did that. It's on the bank plan for having on-street infrastructure, but it was not installed. Okay, so that's a different project, but another example of who builds it, who funds it, can end up with a very different outcomes on the bike infrastructure.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone have any comments or feedback?
There are no comments in the chat, and I don't see any hands raised. At least there are no comments in the chat regarding this presentation. There is a comment that had to do with the previous issue that David had presented. Would you like to hear that now, or shall we wait till this closes?
We'll stay on topic for that, and then, yeah, so if there are no other comments, thank you, Brian, Kevin, and Dan, for putting all this together and, presenting to us.
Moving forward, now we have the Tale of Two Bridges, presented by Emmanuel. You want me to switch over to the other one?
Yeah, that one's good.
Okay.
What for you now?
Okay.
You
just tell me. It's like,
I'll just go like this because it's pretty fast, but I want to thank everybody for, letting me present this to you guys. This is, it's called the Tale of Two Bridges. We believe here that with this initiative, with two bridges and basically preserving 30 acres of space, green space, we could have the start of a new urban district here in Houston. So these two bridges that we're going to talk about, they're on the bike plan, and basically this effort came about because I initially talked to the TERS 5 about when they would be built, and they basically said if the community wants them, it would tell a lot of a stronger story. So with telling where these bridges are, I'd like to start by just showing you guys a picture. And this is a really cool shot from 1944. This is the heights, and that body of water that you see there is White Oak Bayou. Yeah, yes. So I don't know if you guys can tell.
Keep going.
No, let's go back just. Okay, sorry. So that little parrot that I have there, I pointed out to you guys because I never want you guys to forget that little bird. There's an area in the heights that if you look at it from the map, it looks like the beak of a bird. And this is the area sort of generally that we're talking about. This is an area that used to have a lot of railroads. The heights used to be, basically start at Washington Avenue and then go up. And through the years, a few things started happening. So by the next slide, you can see that the highway divided I-10. So if we go back one slide real quick, so everybody can see. One more slide. Yeah, so I don't know if everybody can see the difference. They rerouted White Oak Bayou and they added freeway. So you see a very different shape. So this is an area that had endured many changes, obviously, and as years have went by, the Heights is now an area that has so many bike trails. The rail lines were converted to bike trails. They put bike trails on the bayou. But one thing that still has not really changed is that the communities that were divided by the highway are still divided. So in 2009 is when they added the MKT trail that everybody loves here, I'm sure. You can see that the Nicholson Bikeway used to be one of the spurs of the MKT railroad. We can keep going. I think it was in 2012. Yeah, you can see that there's that area with the bird's beak. TxDOT converted that area into a detention pond. So you can keep going, and you can start to see that there's a lot of development that starts to happen in this area. A lot of multifamilies, units, mixed use, adaptive reuse, just a lot of transformation that happens, and a lot of it probably because it's starting to become a more walkable, bikeable area. So here in 2022, we've got close to 1,200 new apartment units built in the last decade or so. It's one of the areas that's densifying the most in Houston, and it's an area in Houston where you kind of don't even feel like you're in Houston, right? So it's cool that it's becoming a destination. So that's a little bit of background on this study area. So you can go to the next slide. I want to show this picture here. This was taken in 2013 when they were just building out the detention pond. That sometimes they call it the Rutland Basin. And the next picture shows what it looks like today. So TxDOT planted about 6,000 trees to prevent people from playing on the banks of the detention pond. So let's go back one slide real quick, just so everybody can see that there was nothing. The angle is not exactly the same, but you can see that this is a really lush area today. It's an area where today a lot of people go out there to walk their dogs. But I can, just by talking to people, most people in Houston have never been to this area and don't really get to enjoy it for what it is. So in addition to building these two bridges that are, we believe that building these two bridges can help anchor the development of a new park in Houston and sort of be a new crossroads for active transportation in Houston. So we can go to the next slide. This is just another shot of the detention pond area. It covers about 30 acres. With the detention pond and some of the other areas that we're gonna show here. So this is straight out off the Houston bike plan. As you can see, on the left side of the screen, the Patterson Street has one bridge, and then Rutland Street has another bridge that cross Whitewood Bayou. And hopefully you can identify that Bird's Beak area sort of in the middle between the two bridges. And one thing is the bridges, the other thing is the connection to the MKT trail between the Whitewood Bayou and MKT trail. So effectively what these connectors and these bridges are doing is creating a grid, right, between two heavily used bike trails. And they're weaved around, mixed use, historic homes, townhomes, or, just all kinds of things. And they're, as you'll see in some of the next slides, we also have a lot of development being brought in terms of infrastructure, such as Shepherd-Durham, 11th Street, and then Metro's Inner-Katy BRT is going to have a stop really close to there. So we can go to the next slide. So there's the Bird's Beak area, if you didn't recognize it. This is a nice picture that just shows the, this would be one of those bridges, basically directly across the bayou. On the south side, you have Patterson Street, that it's about a 10-minute walk to Washington Avenue. Again, as somebody that lives in the Heights and has lived in Houston for a long time, you never really think that you can walk from the Heights to Washington safely or even possibly. But this is one of those situations where already having a really low traffic crossing over I-10. As you guys know, the Patterson Bikeway kind of terminates at Whitewood Bayou, so adding this span to the north will basically connect all the residents to the south and the north. So you can go to the next slide. And you can skip most of these. Okay. Skip. They didn't render well. Going. There you go. Okay. Yeah, you can. So you can see some of the. This is a nice little rendering of what the Patterson Street Bridge could look like. This was done by just somebody that is really good with graphics, but is not an engineer or an architect or anything. It's really just to sort of send the mission. And really, if anybody recently has been to that area with the MKT development, they took these ugly 1970s warehouses and they made it a place where that is truly activated. And it's a place that's different from most places in Houston because it really caters to pedestrians and bikers. It puts them first, So that's really cool. So we can go to the next slide. And then the Patterson Street Bridge is, really important because it forms a path of that goes about 8 miles of pretty nice bike infrastructure all the way from the Med Center. You can go through Rice, cut through Boulevard Oaks and go all the way to Woodhead, all the way up to basically Clay Street, there's some new development, Regent Square and Hanover, that they built some new streets that I think we need to work on to to designate them as bikeways. And then through the Jackson Hill Street Bridge, Patterson Street, and then Nicholson, you can basically go all the way, almost the entire length of 610. This is a nice rendering of the Rutland Street Bridge. One thing that's coming up here is that, next slide, please. The detention pond is owned by TxDOT, and TxDOT is moving forward with building the Rutland Bridge, as well as a connector to the M18 trail. So you can see, next slide. This is what TxDOT has funding for, $2.4 million or so, awarded by HGAC. They are estimating that the bid for this project should go out in October 2023. So TxDOT is open to being able to basically making this area into a park, so long as any improvements to the park area are not funded by them. There's no change in the volume capacity of the pond, and that there's a maintenance agreement in place to basically be able to upkeep the area. So as part of making two bridges is good, but what we really want to have is make this area accessible for everybody. So if you go to the next slide, this is what we believe would really activate the space overall, right? So trailheads, gateways, community gardens, bridges, and so this kind of forms the meat of the proposal that we're putting here. But it really is anchored by these two bridges that are on the Houston Bike Plan, and then everything else is going to be part of making a park, so it doesn't really apply to the bike plan necessarily. But it's I think it's really important to consider that we want to do something that, like, unlike a lot of areas of Houston, we want to think about every single access point, right? So whether you're coming in from the north, from the south, wherever, people are going to be able to use this as a connection, but also as a refuge, as a place that, to enjoy. So next slide. This is one of the examples you can see on the map of what the current access point to the area looks like. It's nothing more than just a bunch of desired paths. It's not inviting. It's probably not even safe past certain times of the night. Next slide. This is another example of an area where there's a lot of retail development that is right next to the bayou, but it puts its back on the bayou. So opening this up to the bayou so that more people are invited to come up and interact with the bayou. So this is these are all the reasons why why we're building the story of this infrastructure. Next slide. This is kind of what we are proposing again, and then next slide. These are all the different sort of changes that are coming on that are going to make the story even more compelling for this idea. And these are all the multifamily units in the area. Obviously, we believe that the partnerships are going to be key here. We're basically just trying to be stewards for this area, and we want to get as creative as possible. One of the things why I'm glad that we're here today is to ask of this board if they would write a letter of support for the construction of this in coordination with the TxDOT bridge, so that it doesn't just disappear into the distance. Basically put a solid timeline to it. And we believe that with working in between all these different agencies, and then working hard, raising money, applying for grants, we want to make this happen at the same time as the textile bridge on the east side. Yeah, next slide, please. So again, this is kind of what I was saying. Next slide. And we're kind of setting our, I think there's going to be a lot of construction, a lot of initiative that happened as a result of the World Cup that is supposed to have an economic impact, similar to hosting several Super Bowls. And so what we want to make sure is that these are ready way by, well ahead of the World Cup. We're here in 2022 with community awareness, and the next slide is what we've got to, all the work that we have to do. So, I don't want to tell you this, but we're here to basically raise awareness with the community and get creative to get this built. And the last slide just sort of thanks everybody that everybody that has helped with this initiative, and some of the organizations that have also put their names behind this.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Chair.
All right, so thanks, Emmanuel. That was pretty good. I always thought Heights was like one of the next best places to bike around the city outside of downtown. So it's good to see that there's a vision to keep that going. So I'm happy this is like doing all of y'all are doing this work to promote this and anything to get more people to ride on 11th Street, because I know it's not too far from there. So
yep.
we want to make sure that people in the neighborhood see what Houston is capable of in terms of other forms of transportation. And I see some hands up.
Tom Constable has his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. Here, I'll turn on my screen too. Yeah, this is great. It's a really awesome project. I'm very impressed how this group has gotten so many people on board, and also that the mayor attended the meeting there at the Patterson facility. I wanted some clarification on the letter you're requesting from the BAC. This would be to TxDOT to just show our support for the Rutland Bridge. Is that correct?
No, it would really be for everything, or whatever it is. At the very least, the Patterson Bridge as well, and it would be to start basically looking for funding. So, for example, we believe that one of the many ways to move forward is to have different agencies match each other. So, for example, Precinct 1, the TERS 5, and Metro. Maybe put in a certain amount of money that maybe could be matched or complemented by a public-private partnership, and then in addition to that, also try to go this January to the Legislative House in Austin and try to get a three-way bill between maybe 3 state reps who's that. There's 3 districts that are right at the intersection of it. So it's Jolanda Jones, Christina Morales, and Ann Johnson. They're right, like they all meet right there, which is super interesting. So hopefully by January, at least we have some soft commitments from some agencies, so that the three-way bill can, I don't know, basically put in the rest. From this committee, we're specifically asking for a letter of support that this is something that's worthwhile to pursue. I understand that Houston is a massive city with a huge bike plan. So while it would be great if you guys could just go ahead and fund it, I understand it if that is not a possibility at this moment. So a letter of support, just that this is something that you're interested in fulfilling from the bike plan.
So would the letter actually be to multiple addressees, that all the different agencies and elected officials that you mentioned?
Yes. And I think I would need to, formulate a better way of asking this, maybe, but yes, a letter of support, basically to take to all these different entities that, hey, yes, this is something that this is on the bike plan, this is still, something that we want to see.
Okay. Well, David, if you'd like, I mean, I can take a stab at drafting something and run it past you, David, and then maybe we can run it past Emmanuel and see if we can put something together for that.
Yeah, I think that's doable. I think we will have to bring it to the BAC of the whole.
Okay.
Especially this subcommittee. We try not to be too nitty-gritty, but if something's going to go out with Tom's signature as the chair.
Sure.
But we can have it ready in time for that next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Lionel?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Manuel, and the team of the tail between two bridges. Guess we can move to the next item. If anybody doesn't have any more comments or feedback.
Any feedback in the chat, Sharon?
Yes, we do have a comment in the chat, but Trevor Rackman says, thanks, Emmanuel. Your passion for these bridges is contagious and a real conversation starter. Thanks for doing all the head work to make this come to fruition. That's the last one regarding this presentation. However, I don't want to omit a comment that was made earlier regarding David's presentation. So if you don't mind, may I read that one into the chat as well? I mean, into the record as well?
We can go ahead and move forward to open forum and we can have it there.
Okay, let me know when you're ready. Is that now? Okay,
yes.
Great. That's Melissa Bueller, and she was she was commenting on David's presentation about what to do with the money, and it was just her comment was, from an equity perspective, both of these projects are in areas with well-funded management districts and TERSs. So she's worried about the funding allocation from an equity perspective this year. And then she was stating that she wasn't sure if she was able to speak directly to the commission. So David, just wanted to make sure you were aware of that comment. Thank you.
It's a good point to bring up because TERS is, we already know the city's budget is pretty tight. So if there's anybody that can support that, would be awesome. That way we can find other strategies.
This is not on their capital list, so if the BAC wants to do this, BAC is going to have to put in the strategic money, which is what we set aside.
Okay. All right, so open forum, basically, kind of what wasn't mentioned on the agenda. I know I want to give this space for people that have other topics to bring up. There's sometimes that I talk to people throughout or before the meeting and have concerns, and I invite them to come out here and bring their comments and suggestions about what they see they can needs to be improved about the bike plan, or what they like about the Houston bike plan and what we're doing here, because obviously this is not just for us here in this room, but for the city as a whole. Anybody got any comments? Or Trevor?
Yeah, just a quick update. I noticed this week that Apple Maps has finally included bicycle directions for Houston, which sounds like it should be exciting, but they're pretty terrible. For instance, I queued up directions from near North Side to downtown Houston, and the White Oak Bayou wasn't even an option. And so perhaps we could find out who the point person would be at Apple to kind of help them along, because a lot of people use iPhones and Apple Watches, and we want to make sure they get on the best paths. So perhaps y'all can just try it sometime this week and see what you think.
Yeah, I heard the same thing about Google Maps being a thing too. Finding somebody who's like in charge of like that GPS stuff. But given technology, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like artificial intelligence or something, you know? So using Strava data or whatever, you know? So yeah, I don't know who would be point of contact for that, or how we would reach out to somebody who's in charge, like district wise or whatever. But yeah, good insight and question to like consider. Yeah.
So I did think of a couple things. One of my main concerns is reporting bicycle infrastructure, deals, or, reports, right? Like using 311. That was part of the agenda this today, and there are some future plans in probably the next infrastructure meeting. There's a really good probability that we will have a presentation on how to report 311 reports, so I want to keep you guys updated on that. Because I think 311 is the main key of how, other than ranting online and saying how bad certain things are, the city can't really watch all that, and 301 is the main recourse for submitting issues that need to be addressed on our bike infrastructure. So, as cumbersome as it may be, I encourage you all to like go through the process of what it is now and call in, email, whatever is on their 311 website to kind of try and get these issues addressed. That's the only way that way they can't say that it wasn't looked at. I do run into the occasions where people say, well, they just closed the cases. I believe that persistence is where it's at, and follow through, contact your council members and tell them that this report closed and you're worried about, bicycle infrastructure that's not being addressed. And council members, I know my council member has been diligent about that, like reaching out and following through with the closed case and seeing what can be done. So there are ways, but it's just, for the process right now, it's a bit kind of exhausting, but stick with it and keep going. And any feedback or suggestions that anybody might have about that? All right, no comments. Another topic I brought up was I did tap into it a little bit about the website for the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I know staff is working hard on so many things, but what would be kind of like sharing the load with volunteers helping update the website? I don't know what the process is for that.
So right now, the city, to make changes to any of the city web pages, we go through one centralized staff person for the city. So it does take a little bit of time, but if you tell us what you want updated, we can get it in the queue.
Okay. So you hear that here first. If you have any concerns or issues with the website and how you see it, submit it to the Houston Bikeways. Is that what it was? The email?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so send that in, so that way we can look at it. It's just similar to 311. You gotta go through the process and like submit what you want to see on there.
Is it, if you don't mind me asking, is there anything that you
Well,
are
other than
seeing,
what,
is anything specific?
yeah, other than what I mentioned earlier was about like putting our current strategy for listing the priorities of how
Okay,
we
yeah, yes, okay,
how we
yeah,
select
Yeah.
how we choose projects.
okay.
I know that's a common comment that I see online, like why are these lanes being chosen over these?
Okay.
So that's one thing. Maybe another one was compiling all the bicycle infrastructure projects that are happening outside of the city with maybe links to like where these projects are happening to their websites. So that way, because I know it's a Houston bike plan and it's focused on Houston, but things like outside, like, maybe Gorba's progress on what they're working on and what the trails we're trying to look at to upgrade, and so people can see that there are other things outside of the Houston bike plan that are trails that aren't necessarily within city's purview.
I'm going to request if there are things outside of the city's bike plan that people want to start to see reflected there, we'll have to figure out how we know about those things.
Mhm.
Staff time to call every municipality outside of Houston.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's just gonna take us away from the mission you've all given us. But, you know, I think there's probably a sweet spot if we can figure out what people are looking for.
So that would be like an invite. So if you have TERS's, email the projects and the websites that you have.
Anything within the boundary, TERS's, management districts, TxDOT, HGAC, Metro, those we all keep track of.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Anything within the city boundary.
Okay, okay.
Any of the county precinct work.
Right,
That's
right, right.
That's
Okay.
all covered already.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, anybody else got any topics to discuss or bring up?
Yeah, Alejandro, I just one topic I wanted to bring up. Kind of quickly was, TxDOT announced a project on I-10 essentially to raise the lanes, I think between, is it Studemont and I-45? I can't remember what the west end of it is.
Heights,
And-
Heights Boulevard.
It was on the agenda for the TTI. There was a joint meeting. I can't remember what the other committee was this week. I didn't attend the meeting. I looked briefly at the presentation, and it does look like they're making provisions for additional bike lanes kind of in that corridor. I guess two things. One, I just wanted to make sure, David, that your crew is involved with the process in integrating whatever they do with the Bikeway network, but also, we've seen in the past that there's not been much consideration given to existing bikeways during the construction phase. They get blocked, and they have long and very impractical detours. And so I would just really want to stress that whatever they have planned during the construction phase, that we maintain access on the bikeway network, and they don't just shove us off into in the hinterland somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
So staff is right now drafting up a letter to TxDOT asking a ton of different questions about the project. There was a presentation, there was an open house at TxDOT, there was a presentation at the joint meeting of TTI and RNA yesterday. They do show in their plans an additional off greenway route around their new detention pond. I'm not commenting it's a good one or a bad one. I'm just saying it is shown on their plan. But we're going through all of the different questions we have. We encourage everybody to submit questions directly to TxDOT if you have any. And the city letter will also be public as soon as it's drafted, but we're hearing a lot of different things, bikeway related as well as many other issues.
Can I mention our event? Tom, I don't know if you know, we put it together pretty fast, but we're holding an event on Saturday at Student Park at 6 p.m. and the whole community is invited. Emmanuel will be talking about issues with the project, and then Molly Cook with Stop TxDOT will talk about how to engage with TxDOT. And I've invited every elected official I could imagine. Commissioner Ellis has said he plans on attending, and they're already issuing a letter of opposition to it, as well as a number of other neighborhood organizations have started to oppose it. So you're all welcome to come. We may have a snow cone truck. Maybe.
This Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What the hours again?
6 p.m. at Studa Park.
Okay.
Studa Park is that big park with the huge red sculpture right at the corner of Studemont and Eusner.
Okay. Great job. Put that in the notes.
Oh, thank you.
And I see some hands up. Is that Brian? Is that you?
Mike Van
No,
Dusen
not
has had
Brian,
his hand
Mike.
up. Mike Van Dusen has had his hand up for a while, but before we do that, can I read Brian Dobson's comment, because I want to make sure that it follows along with what you guys are talking about. Brian Dobson said, "I assume boundary means regular service, not limited service, right? City of Houston limits." I believe that's directed to you, David.
Any project that is within the city limits or that we are in a relationship with the organization, like a TERS, like HGAC, we put on the bike plan and we update in the inventory that we usually update quarterly.
Okay, Mike has his hand raised. Thank you.
Yes, I was in the TxDOT meeting that they held over on Washington Ave and talked with the drainage engineer when he was talking about the bikeways going underneath the present roadways that are planned to be elevated. And one of the concerns that they had that they were discussing is what kind of vegetation do you plant down there? And I said, well, I suggested to him that he reach out to like Houston Parks Board. They kind of do that stuff and maybe partner with them. And I'll be submitting a comment, an official comment to that effect.
Yeah, good topic for that, Tom. That's definitely something that's relevant and recent. What else do we have? Anybody else? Been awfully quiet, Joe.
Hey, can anybody hear me?
A little rough, but yes. Can you speak maybe a little louder?
Hey, can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Hey, this is Melissa. I'm on the street waiting for a bus, so I'm a little bit, I hope I'm easy to hear. Yeah, I just wanted to reach out and say, you know, I'm listening. Thank you guys so much for hosting this meeting. And what was I going to say? I'm sorry. Oh, so around the project prioritization criteria for the 10% of the bikeway funding, you know, I just don't want it to seem like there's no kind of context for my questions or anything. I totally get that staff is swamped, and I'm also very sensitive to the fact that I may have a small part in the fact that we don't have enough staff time, right, to allocate to these types of things. So if there's any way that, you know, we could work on identifying like, you know, 3, 4, 5 criteria that we want to see to kind of focus our funding that we have for bikeways to make sure that it has an equitable outcome. I would love to, you know, help that process out in any way that I can. If it's just like a small work group meeting outside of this. I also think, you know, just one criteria I'd just really like to see is focusing on, you know, the high entry network in those particular, you know, high needs equity concern areas. So if that could just be one criteria that we focus on and there's emergency improvements, that would be really helpful. So, and it was really a pet project of mine to kind of see where was there only kind of city funds available for communities, right? So trying to, you know, kind of not look at places that have well-funded FERSs or management districts that are demonstrating that they are committing to bikeway funding themselves, but like trying to see where are those communities that really depend on city dollars and like need our help the most. So that's just where all those that context is coming from. And again, like if I can be of any assistance, like as a resource to help make that happen, like please reach out. I will start coming to these meetings more often. And yeah, so let me know how we can collaborate. Thanks.
Awesome, Melissa. Yeah, we definitely, I love that organizations are reaching out and looking to collaborate with the city. Because I totally understand also how the planning department and like, I mean, Houston Bicon is not the only thing we focus on. So thank you all for your work, even with what y'all have at your disposal. And like any other organizations out there that want to help the city out, please reach out and help collaborate. The more power we have to get things and come up with items that we can kind of decide on as a collective would be amazing. That way we can push the boundary a bit more further with all combined efforts to get to 2027 as a gold standard. Yeah, so
I don't know if there's nothing else, or Joe, hey.
Hey, announcements and events yet?
I guess, yeah, we're just about there. We're at 4:00.
Okay, just briefly. Two things. So first, and I'll put it in the chat. If you haven't already submitted your name suggestion for the new sweeper that's coming.
Oh, might as well show it. You beat us to the
You
punch.
beat us to the punch.
Okay, so there's a link there for that. If you haven't heard, after this body plus some advocacy plus some creative accounting to try and figure out how to pay for it, the city's getting its first bike lane street sweeper, and we're really excited about it at Bike Houston. It's maybe the most prevalent complaint that we hear about from people is debris in the bike lanes. So we're happy about this sweeper coming to town, and we have a chance to name it. So get your suggestions in there. If you were planning to suggest Sweepy McSweetface, it's been suggested at least 7 times already. The other item, just a brief announcement. Tomorrow night, that's Thursday, Bike Houston is hosting a casual get-together at Holler Brewing Company on Edward Street. That's off Sawyer Street, north of Washington. It's the first in a series of just casual, low-key get-togethers for people who want to talk about bike stuff in Houston. We're calling it the August Social. It'll be a bi-monthly series, free and open to the public. Come on by. We'll be there from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. and look forward to seeing you there.
I forgot to say, it's for the bike curious.
All right, any other announcements, events that we have?
It's just this one.
It was just,
Okay.
Oh, no, that's the schedule. That's what's next.
yes, yeah. So coming up, our next meetings will be, the next meeting will be the Education Subcommittee meeting, September 28th at 2:30, held here at John B. Rayer, followed by the BAC Advisory Committee held October 26th at City Council Annex, and then infrastructure will be right back here November 16th at 2:30 p.m. Appreciate you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned, I guess.
Yep.
See you later.
I just want to say, while you're sitting here, Jay sitting here, this equity